Welcome into the Inside Carolina Live postgame. I'm Tommy Ashley. That's Rob Harrington in the middle. That is Dewey Burke showing the school spirit on your screen. Carolina wins over Duke 71-68. Shout out Johnny T-Shirt, johnnytshirt.com. Go to Inside Carolina, sign up for your premium membership. As I always preach, it is worth every penny. It is worth every penny to be a part of the Inside Carolina community. Rob Harrington, overall thoughts, and we'll dig into this one. What a unbelievable, epic Duke Carolina game.
Absolutely. I mean, the Heels had several chances to fold up shop because it looked like Duke just had their number tonight. Carolina wasn't able to get any stops for certain sequences, and they couldn't get any rebounds, but they just wouldn't go away. And I kept thinking, man, if they're like a 6-point run from causing these guys to get a little bit tight. And you and I talked about this in the pregame, that if they could be within striking distance of Duke late, Duke might get tight. And I thought that is exactly what happened. Duke tightened up. Carolina started making the more proactive, more aggressive plays. A lot of the subplots we discussed in the pregame sort of came to light. Carolina beats Duke on a superior 3-point shooting night, which is not something we have said a lot over the years, but they got the better of them tonight. Even though Duke shot it well, I think Carolina came in at 42% on threes for the game and obviously hit several backbreakers down the stretch. They were able to do the thing that no one has been able to do to Duke, which is to get them in foul trouble. And I thought that was pivotal to it. Veesaar, after a horrible first half, really came on in the second half offensively and asserted himself to give Wilson some help, who I thought was pretty tired down the stretch. Yeah. And the team rallied around him. And then we go to Seth Trimble. We also talked this afternoon about having a 4-year player, having a veteran of this rivalry, someone who has the brass to want to take that shot. As Roy Williams will say, as Dewey will quote, if you are tough enough to take the shot, be tough enough to make it. And he made it. And it was the most pure Seth Trimble 3. I mean, perfect arch, no rim whatsoever. The ball was definitely going in. His feet were under him. Everything was perfect in that situation with not much time left, obviously. And he didn't panic. He didn't heave it up there. It was just a beautiful find also by Derek Dixon, who struggled. And this is one reason I like him so much, is his mental toughness. After a bad game for him, late in the game, he's still mentally engaged. He hasn't lost confidence, and he made huge plays. So full credit to the team and Hubert Davis. I'll kick it over to you guys and Dewey.
Dewey, overall thoughts here? I mean, everything Rob said, the pass. I thought Dixon had thrown it into the crowd. I thought he was throwing it to Wilson or whoever was rolling there, and he hit Seth Trimble in the absolutely honey hole, right in the shooting pocket, and he buries it. Your overall thoughts?
It's one of the great passes in the history of the rivalry. I mean, to have the poise, as Rob said, as a freshman, I didn't know what we would drop. I thought, it wouldn't have shocked me if Caleb had the ball at the top of the key and we just said, hey, go make a play and shoot it with 2 seconds left to ensure that Duke doesn't get another shot. That wouldn't have surprised me, but shows the faith that Coach Davis has in a freshman who just began starting not too long ago, someone that I've had a lot of confidence in for a long time now. But I think it goes down as one of the great passes in the rivalry. And, we kind of got our Austin Rivers moment, didn't we? Which we needed one on our floor to kind of erase the pain of that one. Super happy for Seth. And that's a shot that 2 years ago, he may not even take it, let alone make it. So credit to him for putting the work in. And obviously happy for them. I actually thought the set we drew up was great. If you watch it, and you're going to see it 100 times, but he had Stevenson in the corner if he wanted also had a 3. He probably could have shot a little 7-8 footer himself, and he had the roll man. So what we drew up actually worked. He got the switch with Boozer and made a play. So super happy for these guys. And there's really nothing quite like that locker room and what that feels like right now.
Yeah, and I'll freely admit, look, I banged on, I think justifiably so, a lot of people banged on how the game went as the game progressed, and Carolina was just getting worked in the half court. And when it came down to it, they weren't getting worked in the half court. Hubert Davis drew up that play, and to your point, Dewey, he had options. He made the right call, and Seth Trimble hits the shot. Rob, we talk about this a lot, and this is part of the old school part of me. You got Seth Trimble. You got a fourth-year senior. You've got a guy that's been there. We talked about it on the pregame show. We talked about it all week. He's the only one that's played in this rivalry, and it comes down to him. I don't know if you could draw it up. It is in the history of this rivalry. I don't know if you could draw up a better moment for a guy who has stuck at Carolina for 4 years in this environment. I don't even know. It's like that's got to be a dream moment for Seth Trimble to put in all the work he's put in and then cash it in right there against Duke.
Absolutely, especially this day and age where you rarely have a fourth-year senior who hasn't bounced around a ton of times. He's the quintessential Carolina success story who's making use of his degree already. He's already an entrepreneur. And on top of that is a hell of a player. I like the fact that they rode him more. I'm never super excited about the one-on-one sets they do with him late in games sometimes, but I was happy to see him take that shot. I wanted him to take it rather than Stevenson. I saw Stevenson open too, but I wanted Trimble. I actually thought that the play might go to Veesaar for Dixon to shoot. I would have been happy for him to shoot too, because I think both of those guys can make a shot like that. But it was really happy for Trimble to have a signature moment in the rivalry.
Dewey, when you talk about shots in the rivalry, and you mentioned that it's the one of those moments, and I want to dig into the game itself a little bit. But you've been around the rivalry. Obviously, one of the moments that you're involved in will live forever. But just sort of knowing guys knowing players and being as close as you've been over the last 20 years, what's Seth Trimble feeling right now? Could you imagine?
Yeah, hard to. I mean, we weren't favored, right? We weren't supposed to win. It was in our gym, so that helps. So, that kind of emotion is what we felt when we won at their place, when Tyler and those guys were freshmen, right? Not supposed to do it, and you find a way to do it, and that is the greatest feeling in basketball. What that locker room feels like, and what the emotion of jumping around with your friends and teammates, and I said this to my wife and my kids when they kept replaying it, and they showed the angle from this side, passing it to Seth, and I paused it and I said to my wife and my daughters, and I said, look at all the managers, look at the strength coach, look at the other guys, the equipment guys, look how invested they are. And if you guys get a chance to go back and watch that clip and see their faces and what it means to them, that's what it's about. That's what's really fun, is that it's like, I know it's the 15 guys and the coaches, but it's actually like the 35 of us that are in it every day that make it really fun. So you're just happy for every single one of them. And, look, every one of these games feels really big. And I'm curious if you guys agree with me on this. This one felt a little bigger than maybe just because the freshmen are so touted, and that's what it's about. Obviously, that's all I talked about. This one just felt a notch up to me, because of maybe Caleb and Boozer. I don't know, but yeah, look, when Caleb Foster made that layup with 2:50, Duke had an 87% chance to win, and then Dixon hits an unbelievably difficult shot from basically the same spot as he hit the three against Kentucky. Veesaar finally makes an outside shot. He was great in the second half. And then here's the biggest thing. We got consecutive stops down the stretch. It might have been 4 in a row. And that hadn't happened all game, because offensively we had little spurts, and then we just couldn't get enough. I just felt like every time I looked over, layup, open three, layup. I mean, there are points in the paint. I haven't looked at it. It has to be abysmal. Let me see what it is. But so it wasn't one of those games. It felt like we were winning. I felt like we were trying and played better. Yeah, 36-22 in the paint for them. I mean, they were at the rim all night. But when it counted, nut cutting time, we got, I think, 3 or 4 stops in a row.
Yeah, Carolina finishes on a 9-0 run. It kind of felt like 0-5 when Carolina was behind,
Yeah.
and then the free throw, and Marvin hits the putback shot. Somebody in the chat said we're not hype enough. He's out. Well,
I'm pretty hyped.
Shout out to the 2,100 plus folks that stuck around and joined the Inside Carolina postgame. Biggest crowd ever. And that includes the Final Four. I think we had just at 2,000 on the Final Four win, which was the next day, because we know how that was down in New Orleans. So shout out to the crowd. Shout out to Johnny T-Shirt for sponsoring us. Rob, when you look at this game overall, the first half, I mentioned I thought it was a huge moment. Carolina was down 23-22. Wilson has Boozer in the corner. Boozer has 2 fouls, and Wilson gives up the shot and doesn't take it, and allows Boozer to stay on the court. That matchup between those two, it played out exactly like we thought it might. And then ancillary guys stepped up and made plays. But your thoughts on Wilson's ability to keep Carolina in it? Because without Caleb Wilson in the first half, this game is a problem at halftime. Wilson was fantastic by himself in the first half.
That's right. I definitely had a frustration at halftime. I was like, they're getting one of the epic performances from the player in this rivalry, and they're still down 12 points. So I felt so bad for him because he was playing out of his mind in the first half. I mean, truly exceptionally well. And then to see the other guys rally around him, and that was one of my favorite parts of this game. Was he was quieter in the second half. Like I said, I thought he looked like
he was tired. He was tired.
But the other guys came up. He kept them in the game. He bought them time. And that's something that a superstar can do. It's sort of like Duke went the other way, where their ancillary guys, as you put it, sort of built them up, and then Boozer started playing. It was sort of the flip. But the Carolina guys came back to rally behind their superstar. Veesaar, his running mate, the guy he's done so well with all season, he finally gets it going. They get some good stops. I thought when they stopped biting on all the threes and they forced Duke to put it on the floor, because they were jumping at threes because they hit some. And even late in the game, Boozer was making some tough drives, but he doesn't have an elite first step. And I thought that the Heels and Veesaar included started walling up better. So even the last shot, I think it was not a bad attempt, but it was definitely contested. Under the circumstances, I thought it was a good play. Now I will say to the person who was talking about it's not being hype, I unleashed I turned the air purple after they put time back on the clock, because I'm a worrywart, and I know about 1972 and what happened to the U.S. Olympic team in Munich, I believe, against the USSR. And I was like, this does not need to be 1972. So it was every word that you cannot say in polite company. So this is me down a notch from that. But I do completely agree that Wilson, even though it was a quieter second half, doesn't take away from what a majestic performance he offered, especially in that first half.
Dewey, when you look at this game kind of followed the Hubert Davis script over the last 4 or 5 years until the Virginia game, really. The Virginia game, they came back, they were behind, they got it done. Yeah. Now they've repeated it against Duke. Is it sort of and people in the chat, and you're absolutely right, and shout out to the chat. I'll freely admit, I'll have to go back and watch the chat. So y'all keep it clean in the chat and keep it
going
good.
Too fast. The chat's going too fast. I can't keep up.
There's 2,300 people in here. Kentucky, Kansas, and Duke in the same season. I wonder when that's ever happened for Carolina. But just Carolina's ability to sort of get the ship back righted. It is a thing with Hubert Davis's teams to do this, but to be able to follow through and get it done. Just sort of speak to that aspect of it. That's growth. And I thought if it came down to it, being close would be a good thing for Carolina, and they came through. Just sort of speak to the coaching aspect of it, especially down the stretch.
Yeah, you can only imagine what's going on in the huddle. You're trying to pull every ounce of effort and execution out of those guys. And the thing with this game is you can try really hard and have great intentions and overdo it and make mistakes and leave your feet on shot fakes to put your defense in a bad position, which we did a lot. You can turn the ball over. You can you can shoot it just a millisecond quicker than your rhythm is used to being at, and you miss. I mean, that was for me. That was Veesaar in the first half. He was sped up. The moment was getting to him. He wasn't there like he's been, and then could play great in the second half. So as a staff, I just would have to think you're trying to manage calming them down, but also making sure that their effort and intensity and execution is as close to its peak. And so there's a weird dichotomy there where, look, you look at the stats, this is not a game that we win. I mean, 38-26 on the backboard, points in the paint, 36-22. They had more assists than us. I know we made those threes late, but without those three, they had 7 threes and we had 5. I texted you, Tommy, we had to make 10 threes to win the game. I thought we had to make 10 threes to win. So statistically, it's hard to see how we won the game, but we were close enough at the end, to your point. Maybe Duke got a little tight, and then we made 3 threes. We executed, but again, we got 4 stops in a row on the defensive end, if I have that right. At least 3, if not 4. And I don't think we had close to that many consecutive stops at any point in the game. They challenged Boozer. Rob, as you said, Veesaar was physical and contested that, bumped him off balance a little bit. Great no call, by the way, because that in the last 20 seconds, you can't call that. You got to let them play, let the kids decide. So yeah, look, Hubert figured out some kind of balance between overdoing it mentally and having the calmness to make threes late to find a way. So you got to give him credit. But it was ugly for a big portion of that, especially obviously the start of the first half and the end of the first half. And then even a stretch there in the second half, I think they got it back to 9 a couple of times, 11 as well. But I haven't even said his name yet, but you could also just say Caleb wasn't going to let us lose.
It is a Carolina 9-0 run to end the game. They got the stops. Not only did he get the stops, Dewey, and this is something huge, Rob, that I was yelling at the TV, and I probably yelled it so much my family is tired of it, is just get the rebounds if they miss. If another team makes every shot they take, you tip your hat and you walk off the court. But getting the rebounds. Duke at one point early in the game had 7 possessions and scored 14 points. They'd missed 2 shots. They got their own rebound and they made them. The flip on that, let's talk a little bit about Henri Veesaar. I thought Veesaar, Dewey, I think you said it, he was sped up. He was playing soft. He was playing soft. He was getting pushed around. He was getting rebounds taken away from him. He get a shot into gonads and went down. His step up in the second half, I think he realized these guys have fouls. They're not going to foul me. I just need to go at them. Just a huge moment. Caleb carries them in the first half. Veesaar carries them for a lot of times in the second half. We've talked about the front court carrying the weight. Rob, that, again, a little bit different than they've normally done it, but they got it done.
Yeah, and I would like to touch on the coaching point because we've been tough on Hubert the past couple of years, and I think justifiably when the team's not playing well, I thought his best coaching in this game was just keeping the team together and not panic. Because even his halftime interview, I thought was confident. It was something like, I believe that we can come back and we're okay, when it looked pretty bleak because it took such a great performance from Caleb Wilson just to be connected somewhat. And they did. And they like I said, the very first comment, they would fall behind. And I thought, is this it? Does it get to 15? And, it's cruise to the finish line. And they never let Duke do that. And so I give Hubert credit for keeping them in it mentally. I know Roy Williams would talk about the 2005 comeback, which I guess is the closest analogy I can think of to this game, and say, look, because that one looked pretty bad too, down 9 with 3 minutes left, and say, look, it's one possession at a time. I would love to hear what Hubert was saying in some of these timeouts late, because obviously it was resonating with the players, because all of a sudden, after having, as Dewey said, a real tough time all night stringing together stops. And then, as you said, Tommy, getting the rebounds when they did get stops, all of a sudden they started doing these things. And it opened up just enough of an opportunity to hit the great equalizers, the 3-point shot. And this time, instead of Austin Rivers hitting one, it's Seth Trimble who hits it. And I know that's the tonic that everyone needed.
Just an incredible shot, incredible play. Dewey, let's go back, and we're talking with Dewey Burke, Rob Harrington here on the Inside Carolina Postgame. I'm going to carry it for a while because we've got almost 2,500 in the live chat. Insanity. For folks that weren't here before, Rob and I, along with Joey Powell, did a pregame show, and not to toot Rob's horn too much, but a lot of stuff that Rob talked about came to pass in this game. I mean, it was almost a spot-on assessment. We talked about other guys not named Boozer and Wilson making plays, and it happened all over the court. But Dewey, I want you to talk about Derek Dixon. You've been on the Derek Dixon train since Kentucky. We talked right here on these post games. Put him in there, let him ride, let him fail, let him grow. Man, I mean, he's hit some of the biggest shots in Carolina, definitely in the season, and certainly as a freshman. This is a young man who wasn't, I don't think he was expected to do a ton coming in this season. Wilson sucked all the oxygen out of the air, rightfully so, because Caleb Wilson is generational. But Derek Dixon's play, Dewey, I mean, calm, cool, collected, big shots, big passes, freshman.
And what I love about him, if you go back and watch the game, and you made reference to it, after he hit that three to cut it from 6 to 3, and they zoomed in on him, nothing, right? Ice. Totally cool, right? Ready to guard, ready to defend and get a stop. He has uncommon poise for being a freshman. And we've had a few of those guys, you know. We've been very fortunate at that position, but not a lot of them did it as a freshman with that kind of poise. And he did struggle, and freshmen always do, especially with the ball in their hands. But I mean, you know, it's always easy for me to reference guys I played with, but you know, Ty Lawson as a freshman was pretty emotionless, right? I mean, he just had it. Even Bobby Fraser as a freshman, when he had an unbelievable season in 05-06, but he just had it. He had poise, nothing shook him. I think that his poise is why we won the game down the stretch. I got to go back and look. Did he have the assist of Veesaar? I think he did. I think he did.
I had to check. I'll check it while you're talking.
I think
I'm pretty
it
sure
might
he
have been. It might have been. It might have been to Caleb. It might have been Caleb to either way. But the hockey assist. These are hockey assist or assist. But so down the stretch, he hits a three, either has an assist or a hockey assist, and then has, like I said, one of the greatest passes in the history of the rivalry. So, yeah, look, I've been a fan. I think it's been unfortunate that Evans has no confidence and has lost it. The few minutes that Evans did play tonight, I thought there was like 2 or 3 spots where he could have just pulled it. Like, he's not even looking anymore, which is such a shame because that is his elite skill, is to shoot it. But at this point, the minutes tell the story. You play Dixon 33, 34, you play Evans 6. Money be damned. And we have something with him. You know, I don't expect that he'd be going anywhere next year. So you talk about bringing him in, and, you know, the guy we have coming and the guy we hopefully have coming. And yeah, but, you know, he's a throwback, man. He feels like somebody that would have been on one of my teams.
When you're looking at it, and folks, if you're in this chat, you may not have read the stats, so let me knock them out. Carolina 47%, 45% for Duke. Carolina hit 8 of 19, Duke 7 for 19. Of course, 3-point game, that is relevant. Carolina 11 for 14 from the line. Duke only 5 for 6. Carolina 7 turnovers. Dewey, you mentioned points in the paint. Duke wore out Carolina in that regard, 36-22. And in fast break, Duke had that lead. Carolina 9 assists to Duke's 12 assists. If you look at what I'm looking at here, and if folks don't go to Stat Broadcasts, you need to check out those stats. They're usually free. You can go and check them out, and they're the official stats for the most part. Rob, Carolina was not winning this game looking at this stat sheet, and they managed to win this game. How many times have we been able to say that? I think we probably said it against Virginia this year, so maybe twice this year. But this is different. This one feels different. People talk about this win. You talked about it earlier, or Dewey talked about it earlier. This win feels different in a way, whether it's for Hubert Davis, whether it's for the program, whether it's for not losing 4 straight or whatever you want to say. It just feels different, and it looks different when you look at it.
I agree. For me, I think a lot of it is the ongoing analysis of Hubert's tenure as coach. and because that's been hovering over the program. Meanwhile, the guy with 1 year less of experience than him has Duke rolling, and so it has set up this tense situation in the fan base. And I think it's also colored national perception of the program that they've been sort of hanging out in the top 25, but not a national title contender as they have been in years past. And so to get this game, I mean, keeping in mind, it's not just that they beat Duke, but Duke was undefeated in the conference. 10-0, by far the class of the league to this point. They've been stomping people lately. They struggled in early January, but they looked like they've been in peak form. And Carolina beat that team. And they beat a really good team, playing very well. And tonight Duke shot better than usual. They got another really good game from Boozer. So this isn't one of those deals like when we talked about the Kentucky post game, where I thought both teams struggled a lot. I mean, that was a slog. I didn't feel like this was a slog. I know it was low scoring, but I actually thought both teams ended up executing their stuff really well. Carolina just threw the better punch in the 12th round, and that's what it came down to.
Dewey, feel free to share what the team chat is texting about this, but I wanted to get your final thoughts on this win for Carolina. Carolina beats Duke 71-68, another in a long line of epic games in the rivalry. It's just fascinating when you look about when you look at the comparison to the rivalry over the years. I know ESPN wanted to do the last 50 years or whatever, so they were even and everything. But it's just fascinating to see that how even it's been on the court. Carolina wins with a three-pointer by Seth Trimble from the corner on a pass from Derek Dixon. Dewey, final thoughts on this one and what it means, A, for the players, for the coaches, and for the program going forward. Still a lot to play in 2026.
Yeah, so a lot to do, a lot to accomplish, and this is great for the rivalry and great for our standing in the conference and great for the quad one and all that stuff, but job's not finished. A lot of work to do for this team to be more successful than they were in the past couple of years. So thrilled for the team, thrilled for the staff, thrilled for all the people that are there every day, that put the time in. Like I said, go back and look at the faces of everybody one row behind the bench. Those are cool things to see that you get to experience as a group. But really, I think, for us as analysts, what do we build after this? Well, where do we go from here? Do we have to have another podcast where we talk about whether it's being up 25 against a subpar opponent and letting them and back into the game so it hurts our KenPom instead of stepping on their throat, or when we're playing a better team, do we struggle on the defensive end, or when we go on the road like the California trip and just play abysmally on the defense? Like, can we not talk about those things anymore? Can we just use this as a catalyst and say, gosh, if we play together and we stick in there and we fight, things didn't go our way, but we figured out how to get stops late. We made key shots. Let's go be that team for 40 minutes, because that'll take some of the heat off of Hubert, because it's not all him. He certainly has his responsibility, him and the staff, but it's not all him. What would Hubert have said differently to Veesaar in the first half versus second half? That's what I would like to ask the Hubert detractors. And again, I've been critical of him. I hate the switching. I'm on record of that. But what? How do you think he coached Veesaar any differently in the first half? He didn't. He didn't. And if you think he did, no, he didn't. And yet the kid found it within himself to play great in the second half. So it is on the kids a lot. It really is. I know they're young and all, but come on, it's on the players too. So I hope that the players take this feeling and also remember how they felt when they got on the plane to fly home from California and be like, wow, let's feel this way more often. And what do we do to sustain that?
Great way to put it. Great way to end it for Dewey. But Rob, I'm gonna let you've been with me a lot. You've been on the boards a lot. You talked a lot. I agree with everything Duke said, with Dewey said about this Duke win. Just go.
Well, I said last week, I said 3 weeks ago, said this afternoon that I was not going to do moral victories in this game. if they come back and they lose by 2 points, I would have said, okay, that's great. They played hard, but still a bad loss. And I know they were the underdog, but I think that they needed to protect their home court against this team for the reasons that we've discussed. And so as a result of this, I'm going to go the other way and say I'm not going to qualify the victory at all. We can definitely point out the rough stretches, and that's all part of the story. But for me, this is an unblemished total positive. And so as Dewey says, now what do you do with it? Because they play their way into national relevance. I don't know what it will do to their prospective seeding. They have a lot of games left anyway. Certainly now that it's up, they look like a legitimate team. I mean, look at the teams that they've beaten. Yes, they've had their low points out in California, especially. But they beat some really good people. And what do you do with it from here? Can they reel off 3 more wins, something like that, and really start to build a high seed and a great profile? They probably can't win the conference at this point realistically. It would take a lot, would have to go right, but maybe they can win the ACC tournament this year. And I think you're seeing the team that we've been begging them to be in that stretches tonight. At least the mental part of the game, they gave you all of that. And then physically, to hold a great Duke team that wasn't playing horribly, to hold a great Duke team to 69, 68 points. It's a hell of an achievement. And so it's 100% positive to me. And it reopens the discussion instead of saying, okay, well, they're behind schedule, they're tracking as a 6 seed, it's not good enough, which I think was all valid. I think now it opens it back up, say, oh, actually, no, they're on target. Let's see if they can really accomplish something big.
Carolina wins 71-68. Seth Trimble's 3-pointer at the relative buzzer wins it for Carolina. Just an unbelievable shot, unbelievable pass from Derek Dixon, unbelievable performance from Caleb Wilson in the first half, Henri Veesaar in the second, and team performance gets it done against Duke. And like Rob said, and like Dewey said, it's but one game, but Carolina certainly needed this one in the rivalry and sort of stamp their moment this season. Hubert Davis and his team get it done in the Smith Center, a raucous Smith Center. Look, folks talk about the Smith Center and the need for a new building, and I get it, and I understand it. But that environment that you saw there tonight is what it's all about for Carolina and Duke rivalry. For Rob Harrington, Dewey Burke, I'm Tommy Ashley. Shout out to Johnny T-Shirt, JohnnyT-shirt.com. Shout out to the 2,500 people that joined the live chat. It's a record. Keep building on it. We'll talk to you very soon. Carolina wins over Duke, 71-68. Thanks, boys.
Thank you.